And 3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I'm Chief Analyst at Channel Master, the organization responsible for this show. I'm joined as well by your other co-host, our CEO and Chief Strategist at Channel Master. His name is Erick Simpson. Erick, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rich, after getting back from travel, as you were out on travel last week. Both of us were traveling, but at two different events. So are you still recovering from that week of travel and catching up?
I am definitely bouncing back. I mean, it is funny. We're recording this at the end of our work week here. We're both at home in our home office. We were 3,000 miles away most of the week, both of us. I got back actually quite late Wednesday night, and so Thursday was a little harder than today. Doing better today on Friday, September 19th, as we record this. What about you?
Yeah. Same. I mean, and my travel day was long because there's no direct flight to where I was going. It was connecting flights. I got home last night about 12:30 a.m. or this morning, I'm sorry, at 12:30 a.m. So I'm just working on adrenaline right now, and TGIF, Rich, TGIF.
There you go. There we go. Yeah, we're in the home stretch. So as long as we're talking about travel and events that we've attended, let's go right into our story of the week, because it's inspired by a conversation that I had with the folks at Syncro. And I will say it was two conversations, one of which will appear as a spotlight interview segment on this show coming up in just a week or two's time. But I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it from a bigger picture perspective. So Syncro, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, they're not in that, top 3, top 4 tier of RMN PSA vendors, growing rapidly, fighting their way in, and they have a very distinctive strategy for doing that. They, in the spring, launched a solution that they call Syncro XMM, and it combines RMM and PSA and some other pieces in a single seamless solution. We've spoken before on the show about that seamlessness and ease of use aspect of it. But as I dived into the thinking behind that deeper with Michael George, the CEO of the company, this past week, he really did a great job of, I think, finally getting me to kind of understand his read on the market, the market writ large, really even beyond managed services, but certainly as it applies to MSPs going forward. So I'll take you through his thinking, and then you'll kind of understand why Syncro has built XMM the way it has. But what I really want to get input on, Erick, is this read on the market and what you think about it. And so basically, from Michael's standpoint, it's not just that the number one partner, the most commonly sold and supported vendor in the industry for MSPs right now is Microsoft. Microsoft is the vendor. It is already today the dominant presence in the SMB channel and therefore in the world of managed services. And Michael would have you know that it's only going to get more so going forward. Who is the biggest name in the biggest technology in SMB or any portion of IT right now? Artificial intelligence. That's going to be Microsoft. Did you know, Erick, that a year and a half ago, which is the last time Microsoft reported this number, they said that their trailing 12-month revenue from security was $20 billion. Palo Alto reported 9 point something or other this past week. CrowdStrike saw like a 13% overnight bump in their stock price earlier this week when they said they're going to be at $20 billion a year 11 years from now. So all I'm telling you is Microsoft is already probably the biggest security vendor in the industry, and it is getting bigger. And part of how it is going to get bigger, and this factors into the thinking at Syncro, is over time, they are going to, and regular folks in our audience will hear this term come back in the interview segment I did with Michael George later. He would have you know that over time, you're going to see Microsoft Sherlock lots and lots of security vendors out of the market. Sherlocking, I had to look it up. I didn't know what it was, but it's a term associated originally with Apple. And the idea is they see some partner solution that their customers like and they think is cool, and they add it to their operating system, and away goes that partner because nobody needs them separately anymore. The feature is built into the operating system. And so this security, for example, Colossus that Microsoft is building, it's going to get bigger and bigger. Anything that you could think of that might logically be adjacent to Defender today is going to become part of Defender down the road. And there will be fewer and fewer and fewer security vendors out there basically doing business alongside Microsoft. So big picture, as Syncro sees it, basically, it and I'm paraphrasing something Michael George said, it is a Microsoft world. Therefore, if you are an MSP or if you are a company like Syncro making software for MSPs, it's all about Microsoft. If you look at XMM, is there security functionality in there for the MSP? There absolutely is. It's built entirely around Defender and Entra AI. They just this past week launched a cloud backup solution. When you hear cloud backup from a lot of vendors out there, all sorts of different clouds that they're backing up, this is 100% backing up Microsoft 365, backing up Entra ID. All they're really thinking about is Microsoft, because their view on the marketplace is that already that's the number one thing that MSPs think about. And that's going to be more and more and more true over time. Really, the big name in everything that SMBs do, and therefore SMBs do, is going to be Microsoft related in one way or another. And therefore, a company like Syncro has to think about what can we do that is complementary to what Microsoft does, that helps them compete in the marketplace, and that is unlikely to be Sherlocked by Microsoft going forward. And that it's an interesting thing because this was a kind of a challenge that Microsoft itself faced once upon a time when they were brand new in the marketplace, and they were kind of looking at IBM as both their number one ally. And there was this phrase that they used at the time, riding the bear. You just had to know where the bear was going, and you had to stay close to the bear and don't get in front of the bear's mouth so it eats you. And you just got to get really good at riding the IBM. And now Syncro MSPs, Michael George would have you believe, really need to be riding the Microsoft bear. That's what Syncro is doing. It's not so much what anyone else out there right now is convinced of. And I'm just curious to get your take on the matter.
Yeah, Rich, this is, until you kind of put it into the perspective of the trailing 12 of, Microsoft versus everybody else, and just that act absolutely makes it very, very clear how dominant they are. And yeah, riding the bear, that's, I remember, that was something that, you know, they would talk about internally at Microsoft is like, we're just going to ride the bear, specifically on that IBM relationship, right? It's like, we're going to hang on as much as possible. That bear's going to be trying to shake us off, right? But we're going to try to hang on for dear life. And so that's what I remember, that phrase kind of, that reminded me of that. And, the concept of being Sherlocked, because this is reading the tea leaves, right? There are so many other vendors out there that provide a competing product that purport to do things better than what Microsoft does. But as Microsoft kind of Sherlocks the stuff in to their own platform, I think that creates a lot of, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and has a lot of vendors trying to adapt more to integrate more tightly and closely with Microsoft, just like, Syncro is doing. So those are some very interesting takeaways. And ultimately, for me as a recovering MSP, I'm always thinking about, well, what's best for the partner? So Rich, is it better, in your opinion, for partners that Microsoft kind of just incorporates more and more of these solutions for the partners and leaves less in, maybe potentially less choice? Because they're also acquiring vendors, especially around, specific solutions, that it's faster for them to buy than to build and buy and integrate, if you will. So is it better for partners, what we're talking about here as the top story, or not so much?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, and you're reminding me of something. And again, I think this will come up on the interview when it appears on the podcast. I mean, obviously, Michael is very conscious of that idea. You know, that the first thing MSPs are going to say is, "I don't want to have all my eggs in that one basket," and it's a basket that's owned and operated by this massive, massive company. And what Michael basically said is, "Look, like it or not, your eggs are in that basket right now." So I mean, is it good or is it not good? It's probably not great, but guess what? That's where we're going. There aren't going to be that many alternatives. Is the Syncro perspective on where the industry is going right now? And so you can either ride that bear to the best of your ability, or try to fight it, probably get thrown off and eaten alive.
Uh, Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Yeah, and and that's kind of what they're doing at Sync. I'll just do this very, very quickly, and then we can move on to your tip of the week. While I was at so I recorded the interview segment people will hear at the MSP Summit, which is where I was earlier this week in Orlando. And while I was there and interacting face to face with Michael George, the CEO, and Dee Zepp, the Chief Product Officer of Syncro, Microsoft announced something that I haven't actually seen very much media attention directed towards yet, which is that they very much want Intune to be sort of the management plane for their for Copilot and for Microsoft 365 and so on. They have awakened to the fact that one of the key inhibitors to that is it is not a multi-tenant system. And Microsoft has sort of officially declared Enforcer and Nerdio their kind of go-to multi-tenant Intune partners. And they're going to be doing all sorts of things out there to enable, to arm Enforcer and Nerdio to go out and recruit lots of MSPs so that those MSPs have a multi-tenant Intune kind of option. And the folks at Syncro, they are super, super plugged in at Microsoft. I mean, the two people I mentioned, the two executives, they're meeting on a weekly basis with very senior people within Microsoft. And I'm there with them when Microsoft announces this thing on Wednesday, and they did not know it was coming. So, I mean, this just kind of gives you a sense for how hard it is to ride that particular bear. Basically, it is a big, big bear.
Yeah, Microsoft is now the bear when they were talking about it being IBM back in the day. So yeah, yeah, interesting, interesting. Yeah, it's and my tip of the week is derived from some sessions that I attended at Ingram Micro's Cybersecurity Summit 2025 in Buffalo. That's where I was. But it just, and the reality that reinforces what we talked about here as Microsoft being the bear and being this, $20 billion and trailing 12 and all that. I did a session at the Cybersecurity Summit for Ingram Micro and kind of a hand raise, like how many of you folks do not do business with Microsoft? No hands went up, Rich. So, that's very telling.
Well, let's move right on to that tip of the week because we're talking about Microsoft in the context of AI and of security, and you've got a tip that's right there at the intersection of those two things, and it's an issue actually that's been on my mind some. So, what is that, Eric?
Yeah. So, boy, oh boy, the advancements in threat actors leveraging AI is exponentially growing to the point, Rich, where, and I, sat in a few sessions at the Cybersecurity Summit, and to the point where these folks are actually using like uh, live deepfake technology to fake users out. They're using AI assisted tools and techniques to do phishing attacks. We've talked about this, but boy, the more and more I begin to get immersed into kind of the, more of the cybersecurity side, of kind of our conversations here with channel vendors and these events, it's staggering just how advanced these threat actors are in using deep fake and recording. They'll even, record video with a deep fake using AI voice so that it's getting so good that it's fooling the folks that it never would have fooled before with using the old tactics of trying to do social engineering and phishing and things like that. So my tip of the week is really all around how MSPs should perceive these new threats that their customers are being exposed to right now, and how they can shield those customers from this. So 3 quick thoughts, Rich. Number 1, and this is something that, if I had some references we could drop in the show notes, I'd be happy to, but I'm sure we're going to keep having this conversation. There will be other vendors that'll come up, or other folks that will be introduced to over the course of, what we do on the day-to-day, that we can maybe help partners with. But number 1, it's training clients on how to detect anomalies in voice and communication patterns linked to some of these deep fake attacks. And some of this too just happens, it's happening with video, with virtual meetings, but it's also happening a lot with phone calls, right? So this technology, so it's a lot tougher in detecting these anomalies, Rich, as you can imagine, than it used to be in reading the email from, the sultan from some African nation that needed you to send them some money so they could get all their money out and then pay you a huge reward to do that, right? Those emails were littered with obvious takeaways, but they still worked with some people, right? Which is still mind-boggling. So think about the effectiveness that can be had using AI and deepfake and all of this. So training clients on how to detect those anomalies. Now, again, I wish I had some more concrete, like here's what to look for and things like that. Do some research, survey your clients, ask them if they're getting some of these types of social engineering attacks or phone calls. I mean, and I'm getting texts all the time that are obviously phishing attempts. I'm getting emails that I have to look at, Rich, today, like 3 or 4 times, like, man, and like, this is so good, right? It is so good that I can just imagine somebody at an organization that isn't aware of these threats and just the small little things that give it away, that then I, of course, report as phishing and delete and things like that. So give your clients an awareness. If anything feels weird, looks weird. Recently, I've been getting these emails, Rich, that are like, and the effort that's gone into this, it's like a whole email thread between somebody that I don't even know and this, vendor, let's say. It's a vendor or somebody that they're trying to collect an invoice on. And so it's like 3 emails in the thread between them. And then ultimately, the person says, oh, well, you need to send this to Eric Simpson to get it paid. And so then the top of the thread is them communicating with me, hey, please pay our invoice, kind of thing. And I'm like, that is wild. Like, so I can imagine how many people that's fooling. So just kind of, train your clients on what to look for. Something looks weird, something is out of the ordinary. That's why it's super important, Rich, to have, SPF and DKIM and DMARC set correctly for clients' emails so that they're, able to identify somebody that stuff doesn't align. So if it doesn't align, it's already suspect, right? Number 2, elevate baseline security posture, your baseline deliverables, and what you require your clients to elevate to an advanced cybersecurity posture. We were talking about Microsoft, for instance. Put them on Defender P2. Don't just take the default stuff. Put them on a higher level of M365 so they get more security and more ability to identify things that may be a threat. Enforce MFA, enforce password managers, and we know the ones to avoid because the news is out there who's been hacked and who hasn't. And do regular vulnerability scans for your clients. This is now table stakes for MSPs, Rich. Number 3, if you can, include AI-based threat detection tools. And again, as we discover these and find them, we'll help promote them on the show. But just AI based tools. I know there's a couple. There's one that I use. I can't remember the name of it right now, but where you can drop in content and then it tells you what percentage of it was AI generated and what's human generated. Tools like that could also be helpful. So these are just three quick tips because this is not gonna, this is not gonna get easier. And these folks are just amazingly advanced at what they're doing. And it's targeting the majority of SMB customers, right? So we only hear about the big breaches, but the majority of these attacks and the majority of the revenue that's being generated are from SMBs having to pay ransoms or their insurance company paying ransoms because it's quicker to get the data back than not. And then you got that double jeopardy where they'll post it on, they'll pay the ransom and they go, okay, well, now we want this other ransom because we've also exfiltrated your data after the phishing attack was successful, and we're going to post it on the internet. So
Yeah, you're reminding me years ago, and this was highly speculative at the time, but years ago, I predicted that someday, just as we're all familiar with business email compromise attacks, BEC, as deepfake technology becomes mainstream, we would witness something that I call the business Zoom compromise attack, BZC, right? So it's not just an email that is convincingly from your boss. You're looking into the face of your boss, hearing your boss's voice. The boss is saying, I need you to move $1 million of Bitcoin into this offshore account. And
yeah,
it's 100% real as far as you can tell. I mean, everyone out there in our audience right now, highly aware of BEC. They are protecting their clients against that. They are, I hope, training their clients, to recognize the telltale signs of phishing wars and BEC attacks and so on. And the new table stakes, the new baseline, as you were saying, is going to be taking all of that, continuing to do all of that, and adding on awareness and protection around this new layer of AI-powered threats out there, because your customers are going to be extremely exposed if you're not doing that. And I guess the last little point I would make is just this further sort of underscores. I don't know that anyone in our audience needs to be convinced that they need to be paying close attention to the security landscape out there. But if there's any hesitation, any thought that, there are only so many hours in a day, this is kind of why you really need to be carving out a little time to see what the threat landscape looks like, and what's happening to SMBs being victimized by cybercrime and so on, because you don't want to figure out that there is this new giant risk when it's sort of too late to do something about it, and some of your customers have been hit, and your competitors are already talking to clients about how to insulate them.
yeah. Let me give you one scenario that seems to be, growing in use, and it's an IT technician contacting a user on the network in the environment and coming up with some reason why they need to change their password. And it works. It's like they're so good at social engineering, and they're reaping millions and millions of dollars in ransom. I mean, it's just insane. So think of this. I'm going to run with this for a second, Rich. So think of a threat actor knowing who your customer's MSP is, you MSP ABC, and contacting them as a technician from the organization, convincingly using AI and deepfake technology, knowing enough on just social engineering to say, hey, we detected this issue with your software. We need to change your password really quickly. Let me help you with that. Let me send you a link. And then that's where it starts. Right, Rich? And it can be that easy to get someone to go, oh, okay. And then, they now put their credentials into, a fake website that the threat actor now grabs those credentials, logs into that application all of a sudden. And now, right, bad things steamroll from there.
Absolutely. It it is a very interesting and sometimes very scary world that we're in right now. But let's maybe pivot, Eric, to the more positive side of the AI story, because we're about to take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to have an interview segment for you that I recorded in the not too distant past with Art Gross, the CEO of Breach Secure. Now he is also the author of a new book It is called From Prompt to Profit, the MSP Playbook for AI-driven client success. We're going to talk about turning AI into a source of revenue and profit for your business. So something a little bit more upbeat. That will just be me and Art, because I recorded this when Eric was deep under the weather. But we'll come back after the break. We'll have Art Gross for you, and then Eric and I will come back after another break and talk a little bit about what Art had to say. Stick around. We will be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast, our spotlight interview segment, where I'm very pleased to be joined by somebody I've known for a long time. He is the CEO of Breach Secure Now. He is also, very recently, the author of a new book. It is called From Prompt to Profit, the MSP Playbook for AI-driven client success. I had a chance to read it. There it is.
Happen to have it right here.
For those watching on video, there it is. I had an opportunity to read it on a nice long flight home to Seattle from Florida recently. I wanted to have Art on the show to talk about it with us because I think the book is really very good. Art, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Rich. It's great to be here, and I was thrilled when you gave me the invite to join you, and I appreciated that feedback also that you shared with me.
So I keep calling you Art. I'm not sure if I specified. Your name is Art Gross. So for folks in the audience who are not familiar with you, just give them a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
Yep, I'm Art Gross. I am an MSP. I've been running an MSP for 25 years, since 2000. I'm also the CEO of Breach Secure Now, and an online employee training platform focusing on cybersecurity, Microsoft 365 productivity, and now AI awareness as well. And we do HIPAA compliance too. So we have about 3,000 MSPs on our platform, 35,000 small, mid-sized businesses, and we train over 1 million people. And it just keeps growing. So that's me.
There are lots and lots of great insights in the book. One of the points you make, you emphasize for MSPs is that your AI journey as an MSP kind of has to begin inside your own four walls in terms of adopting and implementing and getting to know AI. And one of my favorite chapters in the book actually was when you talked about how you did that at Breach Secure Now. So talk a little bit about how you build AI into the culture of how the company operates.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important aspects. And a lot of MSPs don't get that at first. And with BSN, I remember it was November 2022. Someone sent me over a link to this new toy or new tool, ChatGPT, and I tried it, and I knew within 10 minutes this was game changing. This was going to change the world. I just couldn't believe the capabilities that I saw, and that was way back then. I started talking about it inside of BSN, Breach Secure Now, and I started telling my employees, we need to be in front of this. This is something that we could leverage. I immediately lowered the fear. I said, I'm not looking at AI to replace any of you. I want to make us more productive. And we really started to build a culture around using the tools, sharing new prompts, sharing new tools. Because back then it was brand new. And everyone got excited. We would have Friday sharing sessions. So the culture that we built was all about, let's keep talking about AI. Let's use it. And what we found out is that we were able to enter new markets. We were able to do things, yes, faster, right? Obviously, emails were faster and marketing reports were faster, but we were able to get into Microsoft 365 training, AI awareness training by using AI. So our content that we're building, us as experts on how to train and AI as subject matter experts, we've been able to leverage that internally. And the key aspect here is building that culture where employees are not scared of AI, or they're not hiding their AI use, where they're excited to use it and share that they're using it. And I think what you mentioned in the beginning is MSPs need to do the same thing. If you're going to help your clients with AI, you have got to understand, what AI adoption culture looks like. What is some of the resistance? What training do you need? What guardrails do you need? So I really do believe MSPs need to, adopt AI, not just for ticket resolutions, but how everyone in your company uses AI effectively, safely, productively.
And there's some, really good best practices in there. So, I mean, first of all, it's very much a top-down kind of initiative, right? Like this was coming straight from you.
Yep.
This is important to, and so that's going to be something that folks in the audience need to pay attention to. And then you also, like the Friday meetings you were talking about, you created venues for people to share their experiences and so on, so that it wasn't a bunch of people independently figuring things out.
Right.
You were talking about it inside the company all the time.
We were definitely talking about it, sharing, show and tell, and employees really enjoyed it. Honestly, that kind of changed our culture. Normally, we have about 100 employees. We have our finance department, our marketing, our product, sales, development. They all kind of work together, but separately, but together. This sharing of the AI tools and prompts and use cases brought the company together, and it really started getting us working together more. So not only did it change our AI culture, but it actually changed our culture of working together and looking for projects that we can collaborate on it. But that 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 team building, that sharing, that taking that knowledge and sharing it was really, really important, and one of the success factors that we had.
Now, the book sketches out a sort of roadmap for getting started. Once you're ready to start talking about AI with clients, you've got a whole roadmap in there about where to begin and how to progress. And we'll talk about some of the stages there. But it more or less begins with Microsoft Copilot, logically. I forget the exact number, Art, but I saw a figure, a research number recently on the percentage of MSPs who are selling Copilot to their customers. And I was kind of shocked how low it is
Yep.
at this point in time. Why do you think that is? And where would you advise the folks in our audience who are not invested, not talking to their customers about Copilot right now to,
Yep.
to get started?
Yeah. It's interesting. For an MSP, Copilot seems the place to start, right? You're selling Microsoft 365 licenses. And it just maps perfectly into, your governance and the data and protections you put in place. And why not just keep, going with Copilot? On the other hand, employees know ChatGPT. They're using ChatGPT. A lot of them are using the free version. So you're going to get clients who are very familiar with ChatGPT, um, and they're going to want to lean into those tools where MSPs are saying, no, we should do Copilot, and up until recently, Microsoft just added GPT-5 to Copilot. Copilot was always lagging behind. It didn't have the deep research. It didn't have the interface. It was a little more difficult to use than some of the commercial tools. So I think that's part of the problem. Where employees want to use ChatGPT and the tools they know, MSPs are going to want to push for Copilot, and clients are just saying, if I'm going to spend all this money on licenses, I want my employees using it. So that becomes a real it goes back to the Internet Explorer versus Chrome, right? We want you to use Internet Explorer. People want to use Chrome. We want you to use Microsoft 365. You want to use Google Workspace. So I think you're going to see these, like the browser wars. You're going to see the AI wars within your client base as well.
Is there a way for MSP to win that war, basically? If you run into that objection, what should you do?
I think when it comes down to any tool that you give to a client, training is a big piece of that, right? Because anyone can buy Copilot licenses. Anyone can buy Microsoft 365 licenses, but if you don't train the finance on how to use Excel, right, or how to use PowerPoint in marketing, those tools are not going to get used. So if you're going to introduce any tools, you have got to make sure that employees understand how to use it. They've gotten the training, the use cases, that the jump start that they need. And I think MSPs are struggling with that. They're buying licenses, they're not being used. The employees don't know how to use it, and maybe they sit unused, and the productivity isn't there, and clients just don't want to continue with those prototypes. So that is really important, explaining how to use it, what to do with it, how to be successful with those tools. And I also think, honestly, there's going to be multiple tools in clients, just like it isn't like, okay, Excel could do everything for you, right? There's going to be Word, there's going to be PowerPoint, there's going to be Outlook and Teams. All of those different functionalities are like different AI tools, right? There's going to be video capabilities that'll be Perplexity or not Perplexity, Synthesia or Google VO3. So you're going to get those, you're going to get research in Perplexity. So there's going to be multiple tools and I don't think MSPs should be just shoehorning one tool, right? They need to understand. One of the chapters in the book is figure out the best tool for the department, for the client that may be in a different industry. What tool works the best? What tools work together well? What can you get the insight into who's using it? So I would urge the audience is don't just focus on Copilot. Yes, Copilot I think is a key aspect because it does integrate with Microsoft 365, but there's going to be other tools and other use cases, and there could be a collection of tools that a client will need for different departments and different functions.
I should point out the book has a really handy section about how to sort of methodically figure out what tool is best for which use case and so on, and capture that information so that you don't have to kind of figure it out over and over again when you're talking to customers. Speaking of talking to customers, you from a sales perspective, there's some really interesting advice in the book where you recommend to MSPs that rather than position AI as this world-changing kind of brand new thing to them, you liken it to things they already have already done. You kind of make it a little bit familiar in that way. Talk a little bit about why that's effective, and then maybe just provide an example or two of what to say and what not to say.
Yeah, one of the big things that I really push is to look at AI as this AI intern, right? It's very relatable, because you think about AI, we may be talking about Copilot or ChatGPT for teams, but clients they just hear AI. They don't know whether that's robots, self-driving cars. What is this generative AI? Like, what is this? And I think, us MSPs, we're very technical, right? So we want to go in with, oh my God, this thing could, read a PDF and summarize no, it know what it could do? It could make your meeting, we can summarize your meeting with action points without you taking any notes. It can make your salespeople, give them more insight into a prospect they're talking to, find out more information in 5 minutes than they could in hours of research. You want to make it where it's relatable, as opposed to that I don't understand what this does and why I should invest my time and effort and money into putting this. So, that's really important to look at specific functions that they're doing today and figure out how AI can make those employees better. That's a big piece that I really push for with early adoption is look at it as a productivity tool on existing functions that your clients do, as opposed to automation. We can automate something. We can replace the human by doing that. It's really a lot easier for adoption in the beginning, saying if we get your employees using this, just like they use Excel or PowerPoint or Teams, they use ChatGPT or Copilot, they'll be able to do their functions a lot faster or a lot better. And they'll be able to do things they couldn't do before. And that's relatable, right? And especially that AI intern. Think of it as an AI intern. And interns don't replace your employees. Interns make your employees better. They need training. They need to, your employees need to know how to work with interns. But if you look at AI as an intern, it makes your employees better. And imagine having an intern for every single one of your employees. How much better, how much faster they can get their jobs done, how much better they can be, and maybe how much happier that they can be. That, I think, is the mindset that small businesses really need, MSP's clients really need to understand, because that is relatable. I understand what an intern is, and I don't understand what this automation is and how I won't need my employees to do this. So, I think that is a key aspect of initially talking to clients about where generative AI could fit into their organization.
So just to make the contrast clear, so that's what you should say. That's how you should position AI to the clients in a relatable way, a kind of concrete and practical. They can understand the impact. What is it that MSPs tend to say or are prone to say otherwise that is less effective?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about technology, right? We talk about, the how great this tool is and how you can analyze, spreadsheets and how this agent can go and talk to another agent. And, when we start talking about the technology and we don't talk about the outcomes. And business owners want outcomes. They want to know, if I put this tool in place, I'm going to get a better outcome. But MSPs, and I'm an MSP, so I'm allowed to say this about us MSPs. We love technology. We love talking about firewalls, right? We love talking about the next generation firewalls or SOCs or SIMs. We need to bring that back to what does this tool do for my business? What does this tool do for my employees? And I think that's the piece that MSPs struggle with, because a lot of our partners, they're all talking about these agents and building these automations, and I caution them, and because a lot of times I know my employees, they don't really know my clients' business, right? They know the tools they use, but they don't know the business. So if you're going to look to automate a process, you have to understand that process. And a lot of our techs in MSPs, they don't understand the business process. It's going to be very hard to automate that, but that's where we're starting to focus on. And I think that is a problem, that MSPs need to go back to the business outcome. What can we do with this and make it, make it better for your employees?
Well, talking about outcomes and business processes, it's a great segue for something I wanted to get into with you, because you've got the roadmap for getting into AI for MSPs in the book. It begins with things like training and Copilot, but ultimately where you're trying to get to is being a virtual chief AI officer to your clients. That's a concept that Eric and I have spoken about in the podcasts very recently, more than once even. Give folks your definition of what it means to be a VCAIO.
It's a VAIO, a virtual AI officer. VAIO.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's a C in there, right? So I think there's a VAIO. That's what I was calling it in the book, right? Virtual AI officer.
And how do you define that? And why is that where you ultimately want to be as an MSP?
Yeah. Yes, I'll define it first. First, I think that's a very strategic role, right? That is evaluating where the organization is in terms of their AI adoption, what tools are being used, what safeguards are in place, and what other opportunities are there to implement AI to streamline that organization. So, it's very strategic, and you can think about ongoing evaluation of different departments, different functions. Where does AI fit? But, and so when you think about it, it's very much like a VCIO, right? Where does technology help your business? Right. That we're MSPs are very familiar with the VCIO. Where do we use technology? Where can it be applied? How do we make sure that employees are using the tools we put in place? Very strategic, very much, making sure those operational pieces are strategic. Same thing with AI, where we're keep using it. But what I'll caution right now is that I don't think MSPs are ready to be VAIOs, right? Because you have to start, like we go back to what we started this conversation with. You have to adopt that within your own MSP. You have to understand the challenges, the resistance, where the reporting, the ROI on these tools, and you have to get really good at that. And the way to get really good at it is to implement that in your own MSP, to start with some of your clients, to understand where they want to go, where they need to go. So I would caution MSPs not to rush right into this VAIO officer, but ease into it, right? Get your clients using the tools, get them asking for more help, more questions, more reporting. Once you start seeing the clients really adopting this, that's when you can form more of a strategic role. But in the beginning, your role as an MSP is get your clients using AI, lower the resistance, get your client management saying, wow, I can start to see some success, some use cases. This is good. Let's build momentum. That's when you start charging for those, those virtual AIO officers. So, you know, and MSPs want to get there right away. We want to monetize AI right away. And I caution, because you may not have the skill set to do that day one, right? And your clients may not be ready for that day one. In fact, they may feel pressured. Get them using the tools, get them seeing success, and then work your way towards that more strategic role in around AI. What do you think about that, Rich? Do you agree with that? When you were talking with Eric, does that align with what you were discussing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, speaking on behalf of Eric as well, I think if we share a concern, it's just that people are going to hang up that shingle, virtual AI officer, prematurely, because it's not just a matter of being the outsourced provider of input about AI. I liken it as much to VCIO as to VCISO, Virtual Chief Information Security
Exactly.
Officer.
Yep.
You can call yourself that, but it really, in the real world, it means more than just I'm the guy you go to talk about security, right? Like there are certain skills there that take time to develop, and it's going to be the same thing with virtual AI officer.
Yep. Exactly. I totally agree with that. And MSPs didn't start that way, right? We started with firewalls, antivirus. We did, dark web, security awareness training. We started down that path of getting our clients thinking about training their clients. Then we implemented it, an MDR, an EDR. We started to get more and more, and maybe we got around compliance. And then we started to do that VCISO. And you didn't start there, but your journey led you there. And your clients weren't ready for it day one. In the beginning, it was, your employees are your weakest link. Let's go train them, right? Dark web information. And then we eased our way into these advanced security services. Same exact thing with AI. Get them using it, train them, implement more and more services, and then become very strategic. As an outcome.
So shortly after I read the book, I sent you a thank you note, and I mentioned that at some point I want to talk about one chapter in particular that really kind of jumped out at me. And this is that point, basically. So this was the chapter you have in there about AI consultants. Yep. And the threat that they potentially pose to MSP. So let's start with, who are those AI consultants, and why are they a risk factor here?
So the AI consultants, think of this: AI is a gold rush. Everybody wants to be involved in AI, right? AI is the new cybersecurity. AI is the new cloud. AI is the new internet, and everyone sees this massive adoption. Billions and billions and trillions, maybe, of financial outcomes going to come out of AI. So everybody wants a piece of it. And you're getting these AI consultants. Anyone can be an AI consultant. In fact, I went down the rabbit hole and started looking for AI consultants in Facebook and Instagram. And now my feed is just loaded with it. $47 will turn you into an AI consultant. Again, it's a gold rush. So people are selling these classes to make you an AI consultant. On the other hand, there's now people who are saying, I'm an AI consultant. I will go to your business and I will help you implement AI. And what we're finding is that they could be really good at sales, right? I'll talk to the owner of a small business or management and go around the IT component and say, hey, if you implement AI, we can go from 4 SDRs down to 2 SDRs, or 10 meetings a week to 30 meetings a week, or products that could be done faster. So I'm going to help you implement AI. And I think business owners are going to be very interested in it. They've heard AI. They don't know how to do it. And these consultants are selling them, this ROI dream, more sales, better productivity. And that's a real threat, I believe, to MSPs, because MSPs have been that strategic voice. Here's the technology that we should implement. I will manage it. I will make sure everyone's, ready to use this. And I'm your strategic advisor. I think these AI consultants are going to start to become strategic advisors to some of the MSP's clients, which I think could be a real problem for them.
And so these AI consultants, they're not necessarily MSPs themselves, but their expertise is not necessarily limited to AI. So, there are a number of issues with an AI consultant getting into your clients. And one is that any money they're making is money out of your pocket. But is there also this, it sounds like there's this possibility that once they've established a beachhead around AI, they can start a sort of land and expand from there.
Yeah. And you nailed it. Now in the traditional sense, if your client doesn't like you, they don't like your MSP services, they replace you with another MSP, right? And so your real competition is other MSPs, for the most part. With AI consultants, they'll come in and they'll say, "Oh, I'll even work with your MSP." And they're coming in and they are, becoming the strategic voice. So that, when we were talking about Copilot, they could say to the client, "Oh, you don't want Copilot. You want this tool that I know about, and it needs access to Microsoft 365, to Salesforce, to your ERP, and we'll need to open up all that. And your IT is slowing us down," right? So it becomes a real problem because these consultants are coming in and they want access to data that could cause, some security concerns if you're an MSP, but also they just start to land and expand. Like, we did this project. Let's go work on your marketing projects next, or your product management, or your support. And all of a sudden, they're the ones dictating the technology that MSPs potentially have to support. That is a real problem that I'm hearing from MSPs. It's happening already, right? These consultants are starting to knock on the door. They're going straight to management with promises of ROI and efficiencies. Small businesses, some of them are very interested in taking those services, which I think MSPs have to be very concerned about.
And interestingly enough, I mean, you actually have some experience from earlier in your career with this same phenomenon in a different sort of technology field. I want to say it was ERP.
It's actually EHRs. It was health records. Yep. Back in the meaningful use days in 2010 to 2015.
So what did you learn from that experience? So, for the MSPs in our audience who do see an AI consultant either talking to their clients or actually getting some business from their clients, what did you learn from that EHR experience about how to react to how to keep, in this case, the AI consultants out, and what to do if they've managed to get their foot in the door?
Yeah. Well, and so the history that I had was, we supported healthcare. And part of meaningful use, part of all of the money the government was giving healthcare to implement electronic health records, all of these consultants popped up. They knew how to implement EHRs. They knew how to make sure that they all work and automate these clinical workflows. And I didn't. I knew the technology. So the consultants were coming in and talking to my clients. And it really was, I went from being strategic to the tech company that just implements someone else's strategy. Wasn't very good. The good news is they left. After they did an implementation, they would go on to the next hospital and next medical practice. But that is where I when I talk about these AI consultants, it's from the history that I saw. And they did get between me and my clients, which was a problem. And now with AI, MSPs, again, I think MSPs need to get these tools into clients' hands, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever tools that you want to support, and start to lead the conversation, because clients are just looking for, where do I go with it? If you're not talking to clients, they're like, I don't know what to do with AI. And some consultant comes in and tells them the world, and that sounds good. if the MSP is already leading that adoption, even if it's just using the tools, training, guardrails, then your clients are going to want to go to those consultants and say, thank you, my MSP is helping me. But if you're not helping them, then they're very susceptible to these AI consultants promising the world and starting to do those implementations. So I think that is really important to get ahead of the AI consultants. The other piece is, if a client is working with a consultant, and not all consultants are bad. There are consultants that are really good at what they do. You want to be really strong in what you're good at. Data, making sure the network is secure, making sure the data is secure. You want to lead the security. And so if a consultant is asking for access to data, you need to be able to talk to your clients on what are the risks of doing what this consultant wants. Where can we control the who gets access to the data? What's the security around it? Very important to still lead from a cybersecurity, and then also to establish that relationship with a consultant. Make sure that you are in the loop and they understand their role and you understand your role, and they're not doing, your role, and you're supplementing and helping them make your clients successful. So it's a balancing act. But I do think that what we're going to see is these AI automation consultants or business process consultants pop up and be channel friendly. I do see, that's a huge opportunity for companies to say, hey, we know these automations and business process reengineering, but we're going to work through MSPs, almost like MSSPs, right? That they're helping MSPs. So we're going to start to see a lot of those companies that MSPs are going to be able to partner with to do a lot more advanced services that they may not have those capabilities. So, you're fending off AI consultants. You're looking for partners to bring in to expand your services. It's a tightrope right now in terms of making sure that you're still leading that conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. It sounds like one really smart strategy for dealing with the whole AI consultant phenomenon and keeping them from costing you business is to actually research them yourselves, find one you believe in, forge a partnership, and go to market to your clients potentially together. And this is one of those things where their ability to find new clients could bring more business to you if they bring along to the clients that they're engaging with. That works.
And you see that with cybersecurity, right? There's so many vendors. Look, that partner at MSPs partnered with BSN to provide training. With SOC companies, with all of these different vendors that they didn't build all of those services themselves. They partnered. With AI services, we're going to see the same thing. So yes, trying to form those relationships to expand your capability, especially early. Because a lot of MSPs don't have those capabilities. So give yourself time to start to build that internal, understanding and knowledge, and potentially start to build it yourself. But maybe in the beginning, partner with other vendors to help you, other consultants to help you introduce these services to your clients.
So we're talking a lot here about what I'll call augmentative generative AI. But obviously the thing that the industry is super excited about right now, and we're starting to see this actually kind of roll out, is agentic AI, where instead of augmenting the user, the AI is actually completing processes autonomously, actually doing work that people were required to do before. I'm curious, first of all, what kind of thoughts you have about the future of agentic AI in the managed services world. And I'm also curious if you are doing within Breach Secure now the kind of thing around agentic AI that you did, with ChatGPT a few years ago. Are you beginning to build a culture of experimentation and interest around that?
We are. We're definitely starting to look at that internally. Again, still making sure employees feel comfortable with the technology, still making sure that culture is right, where if we start to automate and start to ensure that start to automate some of those processes, that the employees are still in that loop, that they don't feel like they, because you look over and, well, if you're going to implement this, this automation, am I going to have a job? So we're doing it very, very slowly. And we're also asking employees, what is the use case that you would love, right? You would love us to help you with. What's your pain point? So instead of us just coming and saying, oh, we're going to automate this function, we're actually enlisting employees to raise their hand and say, I have a great use case. Can someone help me with it? So they feel a part of it and they feel like that this could help them. And, I really do caution, agents and automation in the SMB market. I don't see that for 2 years. I really don't. I mean, I know we hear about it and we're hearing about it up in the enterprise, but a lot of these projects are failing, right? So although I know that's where we're going and the technology is going to get better, I caution MSPs to be jumping there. I believe we will see these agents and full-blown automations, but right now in the next 2 years, I really think that we're going, maybe 18 months. 2 years seems a little too long, but we're really going to need to get more adoption, more use cases, more making employees more productive, and then slowly introducing this entire agent-based AI adoption. And although I think there's more noise around it than there are implementation. That's kind of where I am. That doesn't mean it won't happen, and definitely will happen. But in the short term, I think we're going to. I think it's further out than people think, especially in the SMB market.
So let's close by focusing on the short term for the folks in the audience here who really haven't gotten their AI journey started. What is the first step you want everyone who is in that category to take, other than buy your book, of course, after they have finished, after they've finished listening to or watching this conversation?
I think you really have to take a step back and say, okay, if we're going to get involved with AI, I'm going to roll this out inside of my MSP. And I don't mean just in your ticketing system. I mean, give your salespeople access to AI, give your marketing, sales, support's your main function, finance. Make sure that you understand the challenges that your clients are going to face. Be able to say, we successfully rolled out AI. I have use case after use case. I can show you ROI. I can show you improvements. That's it. A lot of times we want to rush it to our clients. Spend the time building this within your own organization. Figure out your internal champions. Figure out who is resistant. There are some people who just they hate AI. They don't think that this is a good technology. What do you do when you face those employees? Because, we have some and your MSPs are going to have some. So, what are those challenges? Get really, really good. Just like you're really good at managed services or IT, get really good at AI adoption and then start to build out those services. But don't skip your own organization and don't skip training. Don't skip policies. Don't skip the guardrails that make you successful. And then one of the key pieces is clients will pay for successful adoption. If you could say, I know how to successfully implement AI where your employees will use it, will be able to show productivity and advances, your clients will pay for that. But if you don't, or you're not able to do that, you're going to struggle. So internal is the place to start and get really, really good at that.
Okay. Well, you can show the cover again. The book is called From Prompt to Profit, the MSP Playbook for AI-Driven Client Success. It is available on Amazon. We will link to it from the show notes as well for folks who want to check it out. Art, for folks in the audience who want to get in touch with you, learn more about you and Breach Secure Now, where should they go?
So I am very active on LinkedIn. In fact, a lot of my posts were the foundation of writing this book. So, connect with me, Art Gross, on LinkedIn. Also, my email address is artg@breachsecurenow.com. And if you have any questions or comments or or want some more information, I'd be more than happy to connect.
Well, fantastic. Art, thank you so much for carving out some time to speak with us on the show. Very interesting conversation. Folks, we're going to take a quick break here now. When we come back on the other side, Eric will rejoin me. We'll share some thoughts about this very interesting conversation with Art Gross about AI, have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast. One final thank you to Art Gross for taking some time out to talk about his book. He contacted me when I was in the middle of a business trip, and he said, "Hey, Rich, I've written this book. Would you like to read it?" And I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, but sure, Art, go ahead and send me the book. And I read it cover to cover on a flight home to Seattle from someplace, and it really is quite good. For the many folks in our audience who are really just trying to wrap their brains around how to get into this market, where to start, where to build from there. I really do advise you to take a peek at it. It's available on Amazon. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff in that conversation. I wrote a whole article for my blog, Channelholic, about the AI consultant conversation that we had there, and this whole class of partners talking to your customers about AI and AI strategy you've never heard of before. They're not MSPs. They're not even technology companies in a lot of cases. You just don't know who these guys are, but they are talking to your customers and establishing these strategic relationships. So there's lots of interesting stuff in the conversation. I think the thing I just want to kind of flag, because it came up in different ways at different points in the conversation, is how much emphasis Art put on the concept of patience. In this industry, we are always in such a hurry to get to where we're going as quickly as possible. And Art was really just, advising people, it's going to take you a little while to align the culture internally around AI and how AI is different, and getting people used to it and working it into their workflows so that you can speak confidently to the customer about it. It's going to take you a while, once you have something in AI to offer to your customers, to build the kind of muscle required to position yourself as a virtual chief AI officer, right? So it's going to take time. It's a process, and there's a place to begin and a place to go to market and a place to continue expanding from there. And this is not something that needs to take you a decade, and you can get to revenue pretty quickly. But just make sure you're getting the steps in the right order and be patient enough to get it right, so that you don't dive in, miss out on something, or just kind of mess something up that makes your customers unhappy.
Yeah. I sorry I missed that interview, because I really, really wanted to be on it. I mean, I've known, him for a long time. And I think from the perspective of kind of this, what you mentioned there was like these folks that are talking to your customers that you don't know about. I have a relative who's in the healthcare industry, and I took her to lunch a couple of weekends ago when my family was out traveling. So I'm like, hey, let's just go to lunch and hang out. And so the conversation, went a lot of different places, but she said, we're getting calls from these AI companies that are presenting their solution to help take all of our unstructured healthcare data from our patients and our providers and all this, and leverage it in a way to have our own internal, LLM, so that we can now query and search and filter. And they're going to create all these workflows and these agents for us. And I'm like, man. And I said, you're getting calls from different ones? He goes, oh yeah, at least 4 or 5 different organizations that specialize in exactly our field, and they are saying the right things to us, and we are going to do a proof of concept on one of them. We're just trying to pick between 2 of them. So just kind of proves what you just said, Rich. And that's happening. I'm sure the internal IT department there, they have their own internal IT department, is part of that conversation. But I can just imagine how many calls our MSPs customers are getting with kind of that same pitch. So I'd be curious if you guys are getting calls from these AI companies, they're to your clients, just, comment in the comments below. I'd love to understand, how much of that is happening to your customers as well.
In my article on the AI consulting thing, what I advise people to do is something I'll go ahead and advise our audience to do now. If you want to get a feel for what we're talking about here, go into the search engine or tool of your choice. Just type in AI consultant and your zip code and see what pops up. I did that. Now I'm in a big city. Depending on where you are, you might not get the same results. But it was kind of striking how many of these companies are out there, and again, these are companies you've just never heard of, no matter how well you know the local market. So try that and see who these guys are, what they're offering, what the websites look like. You'll have a good idea what we're talking about here.
So that's a business tip from you, Rich, of the week, and I'll give another one. Do some SEO on your website so you come up as an AI consultant as well. How about that one?
That's a great tip. That is a great tip. Yes. Yeah. Go see who pops up when you do the search I recommended, and see what you got to do to make sure you're at the top of that list. I like it. And it leaves us with time, folks, for just one last thing. And, it follows very nicely. I didn't plan it this way, but it follows very nicely from the show here, because we started out talking about deep fakes. We got into AI in the first segment of the show. We talked about AI with Art Gross. Well, Eric, I've got bad news for you. We are doomed. We're doomed. And it's because of a combination of what we'll call deep fake technology and AI. There is a company out there right now called Inception Point AI. And what they do is use very convincing voice and video generated by AI to produce podcasts. In fact, they've got 5,000 shows that they have in market right now. No human being involved on the air whatsoever. They're spitting out 3,000 episodes of these 5,000 shows a week. They can produce each episode for $1 or less. They're selling advertising against these shows. So they're saying if about 20 people listen to one of those $1 episodes, they're making money. Talk about AI slop, Eric. The world is going to be saturated with AI generated podcasts, and we're going to be the last two human beings doing this. We're just going to have to figure out a way to stand out somehow, Eric.
It's nuts, Rich. And I read the article, and we'll post the link to it in the show notes. But I think there was a comment in there, something about half of the population will be AI agents or something, in the future. I mean, heck, if I see the value of AI and I'm using 4 or 5 different agents to do different parts of my job, that's like 5 times more than me. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, the MSP Chat podcast might be doomed. But you know what? I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and what's driving me batty now is like, oh, it's very well, done image, a little hook in the title, and I go to play this video, and it's bad AI. It's bad AI, like the sentence structure and then the pauses and things. I'm like, oh, and I'll just turn it off right away. I'm like, oh my God, I've just wasted, my time. Out of 10 videos, half of them were AI generated. And that's what I'm seeing now. And I don't like it. So, I hope they figured out how to do this, but if they do, then how do we determine what's real and what's not? Like, are we living in the Matrix? I don't know.
Well, we're talking about AI producing the show, but I mean, AI will also presumably at some point produce the audience. And at light speed, basically, you'll have these shows popping up, and then AI and the audience flaming the show for the bad content. And it's going to get very, very quick. We're going to have trouble just keeping pace with it. Well, folks, that is all the time we've got for you this week on the show. We thank you so much for joining us. We will be back in a week's time with another episode for you. Until then, I will just remind you that this show is both an audio and a video deliverable, which means that if you're listening to the show right now, but you'd like to check us out on video, you can go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat. If you are watching us on YouTube, but you listen to audio podcasts too, go to Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever it is you get your podcast. You're probably going to find us there too. And wherever it is you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people discover and enjoy the show just like you do. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the great Riley Simpson. They're part of the team with us here at Channel Master, they can create a podcast for you if you'd like that. Podcasts are just the tiniest little bit of what we do for our clients at Channel Master. If you want to get the big picture, go to our website, which is available at www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister organization. It's called MSP Master. That's Eric working one-to-one with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their business. You can learn more about that at www.mspmastered.com. So once again, we thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a week. Until then, please remember, as we always urge you to, that you cannot spell channel without MSP.